We were basically a guitar band up until the time of Farewell to Kings, where we added the keyboards. And at that point, the guitar played a different role. And I think since then, the guitar has gradually become more of um, a band type instrument, a unit instrument, if you will. that's more in touch with the rhythm section of the band. That's more in touch with what's happening with the vocals. It's not so much a lead instrument as it is a rhythm instrument now. Um, as far as the second stage goes, as we developed the keyboards in the band, the guitar took an even lesser of a lead role, and we just really developed that. I think with this record, though, the guitar has moved up front again, become a lead instrument, but the balance between being a lead instrument and being in touch with the rhythm section has, it's really, what it boils down to is it's the best of both, I think. I think that is accurate, though. I think it has gone through 3 different stages, and this is the beginning of the 3rd stage. I know for myself, my soloing has gone from trying to play as fast as I can, or trying to play as bizarre solo as I can, to more of a rhythmic chordal type solo. And I think that's more of a direction generally for the future and for myself.
Right. Do you see your role in the band as being similar to, say, Andy Summers?
Yeah,
I mean,
actually I do. I respect him, and I really enjoy his guitar playing, because he's a guitarist in a band. He's not a guitarist on his own. He's not the guitar player. You know, he's the guitarist in the band, and the band is the unit. And it's a one musical entity, and he's a part of it. And I think that's really important. I think with adding all the keyboards and synthesizers and stuff with us, it taught me that it's, you know, it's not important to stand out.
Really,
you know,
the Guitar
it's
Hero
more
thing
important
is not
to be a piece of the whole pie. And the Guitar Hero was on. That doesn't jive with me.
Initially, did you listen to those kinds of?
Oh, sure, and that's where my early influence on Fish.
Yeah,
that's pretty obvious. I think in the first few albums, certainly the first album, Jimmy Page, you know, early Clapton and Jeff Beck were my big influences. Well, if I was to cite influences now, I would say people like Andy Summers, Midge Uri, people like that are more of a part of a band and see their role as being a part of the whole, really. You know, rather than being the lead guitarist of this group.
Have you always played in trio formats?
Pretty much. We, as a band, Rush had a keyboard player for a while, a long time ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was 15 years ago. He didn't really last very long. He only lasted about 4 months. And the only other time we had a fourth member was a guitarist. His name was Mitch Bossy, and he was in the band in 1971, 72. He was in the band for about 10 months.
Really?
Yeah, but it didn't really work out.
You find yourself getting in each other's way?
Well, he was more interested in picking up girls. And, yeah, it wasn't a musical interest for him. And when he realized that it was too late.
When did you really make the switch to Strat type guitars?
Well, I got that black Strat in 1979. We were doing a show at the Nassau Coliseum where Blue Oyster Cult, and one of the horns from the PA fell on a double neck that I had, and then fell over on my 335, which was my original guitar, and I prized it and I kept it as a backup guitar. And when that happened, I decided to get the guitar fixed and retire it. I thought, well, I'll get a Strat. I got the Strat, and I felt it was the worst mistake I ever made. You know, I couldn't play it. I felt so uncomfortable with it. It was alien to me. But after a couple of years, and it took that long, I got used to it and made got serious and made some changes on it, put the humbucking on, and put things where I moved the toggle switch to the bottom horn where I felt more comfortable, and took out one of the volume pots and just kept one volume, one tone, and moved it down a bit out of the way, put a Floyd Rose on it, and then I put a different neck on it, something that was a little flatter, a little wider.
More Gibson-like?
More Gibson-like, yeah. Shark is the name of the company that makes those. They're in Ottawa, Canada. And after making those changes, I felt comfortable with the instrument. I made them for myself, so
I see.
I felt good with it after that. And the more I played it, the more I realized that this, again, was a combination of a few things that I really liked all in one. It had the clarity of a Fender, but it had the power and punch of a Gibson without being too fat, you know? And since then, I've dropped the humbuckings, which were standard Gibson humbuckings, and I put in Bill Lawrence L500 lead pickups in the back position and kept the original Fender Strat pickups.
Is that just a single coil pickup?
No, it's a humbucking pickup, yeah. It's in the back position, and then the other Fenders are the single coil in the middle and front, which allows me to get a good beefy sound on the back position, but I can leave the volume at around 8, which I normally use for recording between 7 and 8. I can just flick it to the middle or front pickup, and it's a nice, clean, clear sound. So for anything that I really want, that kind of sound, or staccato thing, or nice picking things, it's there without having to worry about making changes in the volume.
So what year was that Fender?
The black one is, 79. I bought it brand new. Yeah, it's not old. None of my guitars are really very old. They're all fairly recent.
So you're not of the school that the older instruments are better?
No, not at all. Not at all. For particular things, I can see how a 56 Les Paul, sounds great if you want one kind of distorted, fuzzy, fat sound. It's great, but you try to get any other kind of sound on it, and it's impossible. And I'm not from that school. I was brought up on the 335, 355, the whole ES line, which is a very versatile guitar. It was semi-acoustic, so it had a clarity that was inherent in the design of the guitar, being a semi-acoustic. But set up a certain way, you could get a lot of sustain, a lot of drive out of it. So I had really the best of all things.
You also played Les Paul early in your career.
I played a Les Paul for a while, but I tell you the truth, I never felt comfortable with the guitar. And that guitar that I use, it sits in Neal's basement with him. He's got a little rehearsal, and he's got his drum set up and a couple amps. And I gave him that guitar years and years and years ago because I knew I would never play it again.
Wow. You used it on the first records, though, didn't you?
I used it on All the World's a Stage. I used it on 2112. Primarily, I used the 335, but I used the Les Paul for a few things, and the Strat for a few things.
Oh, you did use the Strat that long ago?
Yeah, I rented a Strat. I didn't have one myself. I rented one.
If you dislike a Les Paul so much, how come you stuck with it?
Well, I didn't stick with it very long. I only stuck with it for one and a half tours. And,
I see.
From one album, really. The other was a live album.
I see.
And I stopped using it after that. It was around that time that I got the 355, which I felt really comfortable with. It was a heavier guitar. It had more wood inside to house all the electronics, so it had inherently a more sustainable sound. And having the stereo set up with the filter, the 6-position filter, there were a whole bunch of different sounds you could get out of it.
Could you talk a little bit about some of the guitars that you played tonight? There were several Strats, weren't there?
Yeah, I use 3 Strats, and they're all basically set up the same way. They all have Floyd Rose tremolo. They all have sharp nicks, except the red one, which is a stock Fender. Really, the only change on that is the back pickup. Excuse me. The other guitars, the white one and the black one, both have sharp necks. And Bill Lawrence pickups, they all have Bill Lawrence. Telecaster is a stock Telecaster, which I bought last year. Interesting thing about that guitar is I never liked Telecasters. I won't say I disliked the sound, but I never thought the sound appropriate to what I was looking for. And I never particularly liked the design of the guitar. So last year I was sitting around at home. I remember this, and I thought, okay, well, I'm going to get rid of my SG. And I had an SG, and I never used it. So I thought, I'm going to get rid of this SG, and I think I'll pick up something else in its place to have kicking around the house. I have a studio at home, and I wanted a Fender to have at home because all my other Fenders were on the road. And I thought, I'll get a Tele because I always hated them. I don't like the way they look or sound, so I'll go get one. I went out and I got one, and I took it on the road with me to Europe. We did our last European tour. I had my Rockman with me, plugged it in, and started having fun with it, and I really got used to that guitar, and I thought, for a few songs, like New World Man, it's really the perfect guitar, because that's the sound I was going after, even though I used the Strat. That was the sound that I wanted to get on that particular song, so I thought, I'll bring it out, it'll be a nice little change, and it's fun to play. It took all the finish off the back of the neck, and on the fretboard, and now it's a much more enjoyable guitar to play.
Great sound.
Yeah.
For a Tele, really great sound. Do you use that on the record?
I used it on Grace Under Pressure, on Kid Gloves, and The Enemy Within. With a double.
So the guitars you're using out there tonight were the guitars you used on the record?
Yeah, primarily I used the black Strat. I used the black Strat on almost everything, and I used the white Strat on a couple of songs.
I see. Could you talk a little bit about the amps you're using? You're going stereo?
No, I'm not actually. I'm using Marshall 100 watt combos, or twin 12 combos. They're straightforward. The only changes we've made on them is because of the specifications and restrictions in North America for safety. They had to add a panel with all kinds of fuses on it inside, and I don't think they were too keen on it because they put the whole panel inside the chassis. So if you blow a fuse on these amps, you have to pull a whole chassis out to change a fuse, which is ridiculous. Anyways, the only modification we made on them was to put in, circuit breakers on the back of the chassis. We just drilled holes and put in circuit breakers and attached them. Like 4 or 5 circuit breakers on the back. That's really the only change we made. Otherwise, they're stock Marshall combos.
You use 6 of them?
I use 4 of them. And on Ged's side of the stage, he uses a little Yamaha as a monitor. So I use the 4. The 2 bottom ones are set up for a very clean sound. They're both mic'd. The top left hand, facing the top left hand Marshall is a much dirtier, grittier sound, and it's mic'd. The top right is more of a monitor for me. It's not mic'd, and I have a Rockman 2 that is also direct through the PA. So, in essence, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 guitar sends. We had a direct send, but it was useless.
Oh, really?
Clean Marshalls to cover that.
A Rockman, huh?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Right at the back.
Wow.
It goes through a loft parametric, and we have it EQ'd the way we want to have it EQ'd. And that's it. Just turn it on, and it's right there.
Really incredible guitar sound.
Yeah, well, I think when you do that, when you get a combination of a few things, I mean, too often you mic 1 amp, or you mic 2 amps or 3 amps, but you set them up the same, you get one basic sound. But if you mix it up, you get one amp that's really screaming and another amp that's crystal clear that you would never think of using, that sounds direct almost, and another amp that's got maybe more bass to it, and then something like the Rockman that's got that limited compressed sound to it, and you can throw them all together. You have a sound that you can fool around with and play with. And in some halls, you might push more of the direct sound. In other halls, you might pull the direct sound down a bit. But I really think that's the way to go, and that's what we ended up doing on this record. I think on Grace Under Pressure, we got a more accurate live guitar sound than we have in the past, because we use different miking techniques and a whole different approach to sound.
Specifically, can you talk about
Well, we used the Fostax, we used Bayers, and we used the Sennheiser 421s, close miking techniques. The microphone right up against the grill cloth, and set up basically like I do live. Whereas in the past, we used gnawing U87s, and we used 414s. We used microphones that were not really warm sounding microphones. and we used a much broader miking technique. So we used more of the ambience of the room, more of that distance from the speaker to the microphone, which almost always tends to be a little brighter and a little more brittle. And I think it shows in the guitar sound. I think the guitar sound is more what my guitar sound is on this record.
Yeah, I get those.
Yeah, I'm happy with it. Recently I tried out a couple of Dean Martin amps, and I couldn't believe how good they sounded.
Really?
So I'm going to seriously consider those.
Huh. You've used Marshalls pretty much your whole career, haven't you?
Well, I used high watts for a few years.
Really?
Yeah, I started off with Marshalls, and I switched over to high watts, and then I went to high watt cabinets, and I think Marshall heads, something like that. Yeah, high watt cabinets, Marshall heads, and I sort of bounced around, and now I've been using these Marshalls for a long time.
That's great.
Yeah, I like them.
Can you talk a little bit about the pedals that you have out in front?
Pedals is all the pedal board is really my switching for all the units that are back.
I see.
And it's all digital switching, so everything is out of the circuit unless it's switched in. So basically, I'm using the Nady wireless system, so I'm getting a direct sound, no cable, direct to the amps until I switch in an effect. I'm using the Loft analog delays, 2 of them, for chorus. I'm using the Korg, what is the Korg? DM3000, I think. Digital delay. I'm also using a Roland DME 3000, something like that, for flanging and some more digital delay. I'm using the Delta Lab Timeline, a Super Timeline 2048 for short reverb type echoes and 2 different types of flanging, and it's a really nice unit. I think the Delta Lab stuff is really top notch. I'm using 2 Yamaha E1010s analog delays for my basic echo settings, which are on almost all the time.
Right.
I'm using an MXR Distortion Plus for distortion, which I only use in a couple of spots. You know it?
Oh, good.
I'm using, I still have a crappy Moody volume pedal.
Did you use those tonight?
Yeah, the volume pedal I used in a couple of spots in the weapon to get them with lots of echo. I'm using a Boss octave divider. I have 2 Loft parametrics. I only use one for the send to the Rockman. And and I have an HD 1000, I think it is, which is the Ibanez harmonizer. I was using a DL5, Delta Lab DL5, previous to this, but I like this one a little bit better.
So echoes and delays are something that obviously.
Yeah, I have quite a few of them. Yeah. I've always been one to use delays and echo a lot. And there's a whole new generation of digital reverb coming out, which I have some serious plans of utilizing.
Really?
I mean, it's a tough thing when you're standing 20 feet in front of the amps and you hear it one way. And if you put something like reverb on them, to hear the reverb 20 feet away, you have to really crank it. And of course, when it's close mic and it's in the house, the reverb is right there. So it'll take some playing around, but there's a whole new generation of digital reverb, and it's going to be great. I can't wait to see it. Yeah.
In the studio, do you is the whole band out there recording at the same time?
Yeah, for our basic tracks, everybody goes out and records at the same time, and quite often, what we're really looking for is a good performance generally, but especially from Neal. So, it's easy for Geddy and I to redo anything. Often, we'll redo the bass or we'll redo the guitar because you have a little time to fiddle around with it and just refine it a bit more. And that doesn't usually take very long. It's fresh and it only takes a couple of hours to get it away.
Right.
But we always work together as a three-piece to get the basic track
I
there.
see. And you try to create kind of a, in other words, you try to reproduce in the studio what you could play live. In other words, you wouldn't necessarily put a rhythm track behind a solo.
Again,
Like the Body Electric, I mean, like when you do play a solo, there's no rhythm.
yeah, and that goes back to many of our albums, and that's a golden rule with us.
Really?
And yeah, we're a band that we got to where we are now by touring a lot, and I don't think it's correct not to be able to perform live what we do in the studio, and that's the way we've always felt. So.
I mean, don't you do use some tapes out live, don't you? Though?
Tapes of things that we've recorded.
Like sequence of parts or something? Or?
No, all the sequences
really?
we've done ourselves.
Yeah,
all of that. The only time we use tapes are, for instance, the beginning of Witch Hunt. It's got a bunch of things and the vigilantes screaming and yelling and building up to the beginning of the song. So we use that tape. But that's all. It's the only thing that we use tape. All the sequencer parts are on sequencers.
Yeah.
We do all that live.
Yeah.
We program it ourselves. I mean, it's a matter of pride as well as being accurate.
Right. Will a guitar sound suggest a song to you? I mean, will you feeling around with something and hearing guitar sound, what kind of inspire you to write a part or come up with a certain kind of a solo, or do you ever have like a guitar concept in your head when, you know what I mean?
Not really. I think when I sit down to do solos, a sound can be inspiring. It may not necessarily be correct for that solo or for that song, but a sound can be inspiring, and I think that's what you mean. Can a sound inspire you to do something?
Right.
And I think that's really the first step. You need, I mean, you can't do a solo or a song that's calling for a bluesy, sad type solo. You can't do it with a really dry, thin guitar sound. So you start putting on interesting echoes and reverb in the background, and you make it so that you play one note, and that one note just goes, and the tears come to your eyes. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I think they work very closely together.
Yeah. Do you take a lot of time in working your solos out?
I take a lot of time working on my solos. I don't take a lot of time working them out. I don't spend any time working them out. I do all my solos in the studio spontaneously.
Really?
So we end up spending maybe 40 minutes or 2 days on doing a solo. But for me, the spontaneous reaction, and I don't know if that's the best way. Maybe it's the way I've always done it, the way I've always felt comfortable. Maybe I should take tapes home and work for 2 weeks and work on a solo and say, yeah, this is the solo. Go in the studio and go, blah, 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 and that's it. And I have, on the last record, I've done that to a point. I've taken tapes back to the house while Geddy was doing vocals, and I thought, okay, I'm going to get a basic idea of what the solo is going to be, and I've gone in solos till I come the solo in Red Sector A, Between the Wheels. There are 2 examples of solos that I worked on. Body Electric, I had an idea of Body Electric, and then totally scrapped it when I got into the studio. But all those were only very basic ideas that changed quite a bit once I actually got in the studio.
What about like the solo on Kid Gloves?
Kid Gloves was totally in the studio.
Really? It sounds like it was just a kind of a...
Well, that one took hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of going nowhere at all. We took a break. We went in to the kitchen and made a cup of tea and sort of sat around. And I was really frustrated and pissed off, And we went back into the control room, and everybody was sort of like, yeah, well, screw it, forget it, just rage. And I went, yeah, okay, and started, and immediately it clicked in, and then after that, it took about 45 minutes to get the whole solo. But I spent a whole day and night going nowhere at all. It was a difficult, frustrating situation on that solo, but once it locked in, it was just a matter of minutes.
Yeah, right.
And that can happen.
Yeah, attitude is sometimes more difficult to get them.
Well, yeah, attitude, but you sort of you look around like this. I mean, you know that it's there somewhere. What you think is the ideal solo, and I think on that song, that solo is ideal. It's the perfect solo for that song. And I think personally, it's one of the best solos that I've ever played. It has a lot of elements in it, and it's quite different. And that's what I'm always looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I went like this, and then it went, and that's why it only took 45 minutes to actually do the solo.
Right.
Once I locked in on a direction, it came very quickly.
Right. On Signals, the guitar seems to be a little less conspicuous.
Yeah. That was because we were going for a different perspective on the sound in general as a band. Keyboards came up front, a little more guitar sunk into the rhythm section a little more, and that's what we wanted to do. And we did do it. In retrospect, I don't think it's correct. Correct is not the right word. I wouldn't do it like that again. I think we went too far in one direction. But I think, again, it was an important stepping stone to this record where the guitars come back up. But I don't think it's really come back with a vengeance. It seems to me that the guitar sits in its proper position relative to the other instruments.
Right.
Whereas with Signals, it was down just a little bit.
Right.
But we had to learn that.
Sure. When you come up with your guitar parts, do you know what the keyboards are going to be playing? I mean, do you have to work around
Yeah, Geddy and I work on that
voicings
together.
and things?
Yeah, we work on that together right from the start. Often, particular chordal patterns on the keyboards will be transposed to guitar, and I'll end up playing what the keyboards initially started playing. So that's right from the beginning, right from the writing stage.
Do you writing on the guitar?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. And Geddy does both on bass and keyboards.
Can you talk a little bit more about some of the things that you might have done in the studio, special things, tricks you've learned? Just
well, it's difficult to say because a lot of the things that are just you listen to and you go, wow, that's a nice sound or that's a nice echo. Ended up taking days to achieve, but had you known, it would have only taken a few minutes. It's just a matter of getting up to that point. So for us, I don't think there are any real tricks. It's all very straightforward recording. It's just a matter of hunting around for the sound that thrills you and that hits you, the right way. And that only comes from experience.
Right.
It's not a couple of, hints that you can get. Right. I mean,
right. You've produced your records from the beginning.
Yeah. Co-produced.
Was there ever a desire to bring in another co-producer? I mean, somebody who, the people who work with, Police or Talking Heads or these
yeah,
kinds
sure.
of people.
Well, that's what happened with this last record. We decided to work with somebody else, and unfortunately, after they decided to work with us, they changed their mind before we went into the writing mode. So we were a little bit left out in the open, and we talked with a number of other people that we wanted to work with. Because really the idea was to give it to somebody else and have them deal with us, with our music, the way they thought they should. Excuse me, they were obviously people that we respected a lot and we felt knew a lot about music and about sound in general. But unfortunately, these people are very busy people, and we have to get in touch with them months in advance. So none of them were available. So we went to our second list of up-and-coming engineers and producers, and that's, well, not that Peter Henderson was an up-and-coming producer, he was an established producer. But when we sat down and talked to him, we realized that this guy had everything, and he was a good guy, and it would be interesting to work with him. And it was, and I think the results of Grace Under Pressure show that.
Can you talk about who some of the people might have been?
Pardon?
Can you talk about?
Oh yeah, we thought about Steve Lillywhite, Hugh Padgham, he was busy working with split ends at the time. Steve was the original producer that changed his mind and went out to work with Simple Minds. Rupert Hine, I spoke to Rupert, and he was interested, but his schedule was very busy. And there were a few others.
Yeah. Would you like to do any producing?
Of us?
Outside producing.
Outside? Possibly. I can't really look at it realistically unless I have the time. And I've got a couple kids, and my family life is very important to me. I really try to separate the two, so that when we have time off, I like to spend it with my family, and I don't really concern myself with music, business. I mean, I have a studio at home, and I go down and I tool around, and that's really nice. I don't think of myself as a member of Rush at those times.
I see. Yeah.
And I would like to work with other people, both as a musician and possibly as a producer, but it's not a primary goal for me. Geddy's worked with a couple of bands as a producer. He's enjoyed it, and I certainly see a future for him as a producer.
Have you ever done any sessions with him playing as a guitarist?
Nothing that became a.
Can you talk a little bit about the acoustic guitars that you play?
I used the Ovation Adonis. That's about it. Live in the studio, I didn't use an acoustic on this last record. In the past, I've used B45, Gibson mostly, Dub and B45.
Talk a little bit about the picks and strings that you play.
I use K picks. They're nylon picks, hard to find. And I use Dean Markley's 9, 11, 14, 22, 32, 28, 48, 28, 38, 48, sorry. And I use a slightly heavier gauge on the Telecaster. And I've used Dean Markley's for years and years and years.
And Floyd Rose obviously keeps them in tune.
The Floyd Rose, yeah. It's the original Floyd Rose design, and I'm happy with that. I don't really go for the new...
it's not the tunable?
It's not the tunable. I will not use it.
Wow, why is that?
I don't like it. I found it scraped my wrist for one thing, and it was just, I don't need it. I don't use a locking nut, so I don't need a tunable bridge. I can do all my tuning with my machine heads. I'm not crazy on my vibrato arms, so once my nut works in, a little bit of graphite keeps things in order.
They don't go out of tune.
No, tonight we did a bit.
Oh, really?
Yeah, well, I changed to these Fender string retainers, and they'll take a little while.
Yeah. Is there anything special about the way you pick your right hand?
I don't think so. I think it's a fairly standard up and down type picking. For most things, I pick in a downward motion, and I use a lot of pulls and hammers.
Are there certain types of chords you'll write into a section because they lend themselves to soloing over?
I don't know. I'm partial to suspended chords. I like the ringing of open strings. I find that you can simulate the sound of two guitars by doing things like that. For instance, playing an F major and just lifting up your barred fingers so that you play the bottom note, the F sharp, with the B and the E ringing out. You get, if you can imagine that, just
F bar chord?
Doing like this.
Yeah.
Having the no. It's F sharp.
F sharp. Okay.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And just holding down the F sharp on your E string and letting the B and E. That is an example.
Right.
It almost gives the impression of two chords there.
Right.
So, and I do that quite often.
Do you think? I'm sorry.
No, I was
playing with Geddy and Neal has shaped your playing? I mean, had you been playing with a different rhythm section?
Oh, no, definitely.
Give me 5 more minutes.
Yeah. With Geddy and Neal, certainly with, Geddy and Neal are a fantastic rhythm section. And with Signals, I became more in tune with what Neal was doing. I realized that if this is going to work, I'm going to have to really pay attention to what Neal is doing, and I'm going to have to pick up his cues, and not only his cues, but his approach to the rhythm section of a song. And I learned a lot from Signals in that respect, and I'm always learning. I'm much more in tune to what he's doing and to what he and Geddy are doing when they're together. And it's not so much a counterpoint to what they're doing or being off on your own as being connected to it, but aware of what that is, and yet stepping outside of it, you know, but always having that as the anchor.
So then this trio is definitely different than what Cream did.
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, the whole premise of this trio is different.
Yeah. So what are the plans for the band, and what are the new...
Well, we'll work until the middle of July and then take some time off and go back out in September, work till Christmas, take a little bit of time off and start writing probably in the beginning of March for a couple of months, and then go into the studio and record. We should have a new album out by this time next year, around June, mid-June of next year, and just keep at it.
Yeah. So as an overview of Rush's career thus far, how would you sum it up? What would you say?
I would say we've lived a lot longer than we ever expected to live, and we don't seem to have peaked quite yet. So there is still a little bit of life left in us.
Yeah.
Who knows how much? But I can say for sure that when we realize, or when we feel that as a band, as a unit, as Rush is not creatively mobile anymore, then that will be the end of the band. I look forward to that, not to the end of the band, but I look forward to that realization, because I think at that point, whether it's 5 albums from now, 1 album from now, or 10 albums from now, I think we'll sort of look back and we'll be proud of ourselves, and we'll feel that we did it, and we did it our way, and we came to the end of it, and we realized that we came to the end of it, and we said, guys, that's it. And I don't think you'll see, the last Rush tour, 4 times over, or any of that.
Okay.
But I think we still got some juice left in us.
Yeah, I'm sure. Terrific.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.